Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Call this meeting the NCUA Board to order. I want to welcome our in-person guests. We have representatives from several credit unions here. Great to see you all. In addition to those joining us here in the boardroom, I want to note for the record, today's meeting is open to the public through a live webcast as well. If you're watching online, if you want to view the closed captioning, please click on the CC icon located in the lower left corner of the WebEx. You can also change the layout to one of your choosing by clicking the layout option on the top right. We recommend the stack view. Board member Harper is also joining online. We plan on having a hard stop at 11:30. It's 10:01 right now. Before we begin our formal agenda for today, I want to make a few remarks. We have 3 items on the agenda. The first is a briefing on artificial intelligence and its use by credit unions and NCUA. The second is a briefing from the Office of the Ombudsman with the post-exam survey results. And the third and final is the central liquidity facility. Before we go to the briefings, I want to acknowledge that there have been 3 liquidations since our last board meeting in May. Liquidating a credit union is always disappointing news. NCUA moves to liquidate a credit union when the organization is insolvent with no reasonable prospect of recapitalization. Upon liquidation, NCUA's priorities are prompt return of member shares, payment of creditors, and the disposition of the remaining assets into our share insurance fund. Liquidating a credit union is unique action. It's not connected to actions taken with respect to any other federally insured credit union. The timing of liquidations depends on the identification of material issues and/or losses that cannot be otherwise resolved. The timing of those 3 recent failures is coincidental. It is not a larger trend. On a positive note, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the chartering anniversaries of credit unions chartered in the last 2 years that were all federally chartered in 2023 or 2024. You know, de novos are a priority, and it's not just to hand out a charter. It's important that these children these babies survive and learn how to walk, so we want to recognize that they're now alive for 1 year, 2 year, et cetera. So here's some recent ones, just again, last 2 years that are now. New Jersey State PBA, that's a police one's credit union in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Fairbreak Federal Credit Union, Memphis, Tennessee. Young Community Federal Credit Union, Louisville, Kentucky. Generations United Federal Credit Union of New York, New York. And 4 members only, Federal Credit Union of Chicago, Illinois. All of those were chartered in the last 2 years and are surviving as we sit here today. So we want to congratulate their management and as well as our team that got them going. Also, I want to recognize Arise Community Credit Union and Tribe Federal Credit Union, both in Minneapolis, both of which already have their provisional charter. That's a program we started a couple years ago, and are now very close to opening officially to the public. Congratulations to all those credit unions. We wish them all success. First item on today's agenda is a briefing on artificial intelligence. Staff presenting are Amanda Parkhill, Acting Director of Office of Exam and Insurance, and Amber Gravius, Director of Office of Business and Innovation. Good morning, Amanda. Amber, begin when ready.
Good morning, Chairman Harper, Chairman Hopman, Board Member Harper, and Board Member Otska. Amanda and I are here to discuss and share insights about AI with you today. As a multidisciplinary field, including machine learning, natural language processing, and robotics, with transformative applications across many fields, including the financial industry, AI is changing how we live, work, and operate. But perceptions vary depending on who you talk to. Next slide, please. Amanda, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear AI?
This is probably going to date me, but the Jetsons, they had a lot of really cool things.
People from Philly say Allen Iverson.
So similar to Amanda's response, when I'm talking with other people about AI, I often get movie references, such as The Terminator, The Matrix, or 2001 Space Odyssey, which came out in 1968. Many movies have a common theme of man against the machine, although autonomous and semi-autonomous robotics that utilize artificial intelligence do exist. Our focus today will be about opportunities and considerations for the NCUA and credit unions. Next slide, please. It is important for us to level set on what is AI. Although there is ongoing debate and controversy about an agreed upon definition, Executive Order 14179, Removing Barriers to American Leadership in Artificial Intelligence, references 15 U.S.C. 94013, which defines AI as a machine-based system which can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments. The Office of Management and Budget issued Memorandum M2521 in April 2025 and provided additional technical context. AI includes technical subfields of machine learning and generative AI. It also includes systems that are fully autonomous and partially autonomous. To illustrate, let's use a car analogy. A self-driving car is an example of a fully autonomous use of AI. To understand the surroundings and make driving decisions, they use cameras, radar, and LiDAR, which is a remote sensing method that uses laser light to create 3D models of the surroundings to detect obstacles like pedestrians, other vehicles, and road markings. However, maybe something we can better relate to is a partially autonomous use of AI, where some driving tasks are automated but still require human oversight. For example, the vehicle can control steering, acceleration, and deceleration, but the driver must stay engaged and be ready to take over. A non-autonomous use of AI utilizes sensor data to predict potential issues and alert drivers of scheduled maintenance. I have heard testimonies where this use of AI is being used in the commercial vehicle space. But turning our analogy from cars to the financial industry, while the concept of fully autonomous AI in finance is still evolving, automating data entry, report generation, and customer support are a few examples of partially autonomous AI where there is still human oversight, but employees are freed up for more strategic work. Risk mitigation is a great example of non-autonomous AI where humans are still integrated into the process for fraud detection and anti-money laundering. I'll now turn it over to Amanda to talk about the credit union industry.
Thank you. As Amber mentioned, there are several ways that AI can enhance or streamline financial services. And just to clear up a question that some may have, yes, credit unions can use AI tools and technology. In fact, many are already using AI, and we'll look at some specific use cases in a moment. Credit unions are encouraged to use technology when done in a safe and sound manner, and this is not a new approach. For example, in 2018, NCUA was part of a joint statement to encourage innovative approaches to Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering compliance. The most important thing for credit unions to remember is that AI should be treated like any other new product or service. The expectations remain the same. This includes compliance with all existing laws and regulations. For the most part, the requirements that credit unions must comply with are technology neutral. By that, I mean they must be considered no matter what technology a credit union is using. For example, credit unions need to consider information security, whether the information is being shared through email, over the phone, or through an AI tool. Additionally, credit unions should employ the same risk management practices that they are already using for managing their operations and programs currently. That includes identifying risks that may be unique to a particular service or technology, monitoring and measuring those risks, and mitigating them as necessary. Credit unions that use a vendor for a product or service, including those that contain some element of AI, should conduct adequate third-party due diligence. To ensure the credit union continues to operate in a safe and sound manner, credit union management and boards of directors should understand the risks, how the product or service fits into the credit union's business model, and ensure there are appropriate controls around its use, among other considerations. So to restate the bottom line, credit unions can use AI tools and technology. And just because NCUA doesn't have guidance on a specific tool or activity doesn't mean it's necessarily impermissible. For example, we don't have specific guidance on ATMs, but these are prevalent in the credit union system. But instead, credit unions with ATMs have to ensure they are complying with applicable regulations related to funds availability or information security. Next slide, please. In speaking about AI-related guidance, it's worth mentioning a recent GAO report titled Artificial Intelligence, Use and Oversight in Financial Services that was issued in May of 2025. One of GAO's two findings for NCUA was that NCUA's lack of model risk management guidance may lead to inadequate oversight of credit unions' model use, including AI models. The report also noted that more detailed guidance for staff and regulated entities would help NCUA ensure that its expectations for addressing risks are clear, consistently implemented, and effectively monitored. The recommendation for NCUA was to update its model risk management guidance. The agency agreed to review existing guidance, including that of the federal banking agencies, to determine any benefit of issuing similar information to credit unions. We have completed that review, which included reviewing the banking agency guidance, as well as research into the applicability and usefulness of guidance from academic sources and banking industry trade groups. And our conclusion is that focusing solely on model risk management really wouldn't provide sufficient information on all of the ways that credit unions are or could be using AI. Another consideration as a regulator is to make sure that guidance is just that, guidance. It should not establish expectations or requirements that would be used to assess a credit union's AI use. Any expectations or requirements would need to be established through a formal notice and comment process. However, we do know that guidance can provide useful information for credit unions that are or are thinking about adopting AI, and for our examiners to better understand the landscape of AI use in credit unions. To ensure stakeholders have access to current information, the agency is developing an AI resources page on ncua.gov. So similar to the cybersecurity and anti-money laundering resource pages that we have, we'll provide a page that has links to authoritative guidance from sources like NIST and CISA that credit unions can use when developing or integrating AI technology. This will provide up-to-date information on AI-specific risks and ways to mitigate these risks. We're planning to launch the site soon and hope it will address any concerns that credit unions and NCUA examiners are at a disadvantage because of a lack of guidance. And we do want to say, like, if credit unions feel that they're disadvantaged, we want to know what we can do, what it is that we can do. So hold on to those thoughts in a few moments. We'll cover how you can send us your feedback. Next slide, please. Before we get to submitting feedback, let's look at some of the ways that credit unions are already using AI for various functions. So this slide lists some of the areas that AI has been or can be used to increase efficiencies, enhance services, or improve decision-making. For example, we know of a credit union that was able to increase funds availability for members and reduce call volume by 40% using machine learning models to better understand member behavior and risk factors. In another use case, a credit union uses AI to review checks for fraudulent patterns. The tool allows them to process significantly more checks and reduce fraud losses. And of course, this isn't a complete list of all the current potential use cases. Credit unions have often been on the forefront of technology and finding unique solutions. So I'm certain that with AI, there's a lot of collaboration and coordination within the industry, and that credit unions are sharing ideas and learning from one another on the most effective use cases. And credit unions can also reach out to trade or research organizations for additional information. And I hope that through this presentation or in talking with other credit union leaders can identify new or additional ways that they may be able to incorporate AI at their credit union. Next slide, please. Even though there are several benefits to using AI, there's some barriers to adopting any new technology. And I've included a few of the common barriers that we're aware of on this slide. For example, it's difficult to find and retain talent with appropriate expertise. There are high costs that come with obtaining expertise and implementing any new tools. And sometimes there are concerns from members about interacting with AI or what it means for their data. Regulatory uncertainty can cover a lot of things. Some credit unions may have concerns about future regulations that would make a product they've invested in impermissible, or others may worry about how their examiner may view processes or tools that incorporate AI. This is obviously the barrier that NCUA has the most involvement in, and we want to know what we can do to help eliminate or reduce this barrier. Next slide, please. So our ask to credit unions and other stakeholders is, what can NCUA do to remove the regulatory uncertainty barrier? Or maybe there's a specific regulation that's prohibiting you from implementing a specific AI use case. Or as I mentioned before, are credit unions disadvantaged, and what can the agency do to address that? So please send specific regulatory barriers that are inhibiting your ability to effectively use AI. And if possible, submit language changes or other recommendations to address the barrier. Alternatively, if it's regulatory uncertainty that's keeping you from adopting AI, let us know what would provide you certainty. Maybe that looks like an official statement or a letter to credit unions. But the more specific that credit unions are about the problem you're experiencing, the more likely we'll be able to address it appropriately. And you can submit your feedback through the Ask NCUA email that is on the screen, or through a new section on our website that's located on our main page using the icon shown on this slide. We look forward to receiving your comments, and now I will turn it back over to Amber to talk about NCUA's use of AI.
Thank you, Amanda. The NCUA is taking a methodical approach to AI. We are focused on identifying the use cases of greatest utility to help the agency effectively and efficiently achieve its mission, while also minimizing risk and ensuring data privacy and security. Our current use cases include solutions to save time creating and editing graphics, translating languages, enhancing cybersecurity, and coding. The NCUA is also using machine learning techniques to identify potential data reporting errors with the 5300 call report and estimating loan default probability for supervisory stress testing. The modernization of NCUA's call report review process produces anomaly alerts and saves staff approximately 40 hours each quarter, vastly improving data quality for the NCUA's most popular public data set. In the simplest of terms, the NCUA uses a forecasting model with clustering and text mining machine learning algorithms to identify outliers and business rules to reduce false positives. The output reports are sent to the NCUA regional office staff for review and potential action. Once any false positives are disregarded, the examiner will contact a credit union to verify if a corrected call report must be submitted. In addition to assessing security, privacy, compliance, return on investment, the NCUA carefully evaluates all new technologies to ensure we have the financial and operational capacity to sustain any investment. We are applying the same diligence when we evaluate AI tools and opportunities. We regularly use targeted proof of concept and small group pilots to explore technology and ensure it meets business needs prior to large-scale implementation. One of our recent projects revealed efficiencies in document creation, data analysis, research, and information gathering. Additionally, pilot participants indicated AI was beneficial in drafting and editing documents, content structuring, presentations, email inbox organization, and meeting summaries. I personally can attest AI is changing how I work. For example, I may or may not have used AI to create this presentation today. All jokes aside, if an AI tool can save an employee a few hours each month where they can focus on mission-critical tasks, the investment may be justified. It is important to remember we still need to validate AI outputs for accuracy. Like other technologies, we need to remember it's a tool. Yes, a very powerful tool, but humans are still responsible for the end product. As we have discussed today, there are many opportunities to unleash the power of AI. Like many others, the NCUA is updating policies to ensure ethical use of AI. The agency has issued guidance to staff about responsible use of AI, focusing on risk management, data privacy, and security. Next slide, please. The NCUA is also committed to ensuring we comply with federal requirements. As outlined in the Office of Management and Budget Memorandum M2521 and rescinded versions, the NCUA posts our AI use case inventory and our compliance plan on our website at www.ncua.gov/AI. It's important to note we are currently updating both documents to comply with the latest requirements and will post them publicly once complete. As we look to the future, the NCUA will continue to explore opportunities to leverage AI for our credit union supervision programs and other internal processes to maximize employee time and productivity. Additionally, as we are already seeing, AI can analyze large volumes of data and provide potential areas of focus, reducing manual processes. As we evaluate our strategies, the NCUA actively participates on several interagency working groups with other FIREA agencies and attends the Chief Data Officer and Chief AI Officer Council meetings. These groups and councils, comprised of small and large federal agencies, document and share best practices in data and AI governance, innovation, and risk management. By leveraging lessons learned and successful implementation strategies from other federal agencies, the NCUA is well positioned to incorporate additional AI emerging technologies. In closing today, I want to share a quote I read recently from Winston Churchill. It said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned the different perceptions about AI and recognized trusting a computer output may not be easy for everyone. But as an optimist, I believe that through effective change management and time, the powerful insights provided by AI will soften the resolve of those who only see man against the machine. I'm excited about the bright and exciting journey ahead of us. Amanda and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks to you both. Today's discussion on AI is well timed. Just yesterday, the Trump administration announced America's AI Action Plan. It outlines the president's efforts to harness the full power of American innovation. AI is one of, in my opinion, the three game changers in my lifetime. The other two being the internet and then cryptocurrency and its associated blockchain technology. The White House's new plan makes me more confident that Americans will be allowed to do what we do best, monetize innovation. The plan has a similar do no harm ethos as something I've praised before, the 1997 Clinton-Gore principles for this new thing at the time called the internet. Number one of the five was the private sector shall lead. And as for that third game-changing technology, blockchain, it now appears Americans are finally in a position to get our share of the new jobs and other benefits now that a wiser, more sensible regulatory philosophy has arrived. The President's plan prioritizes reducing regulatory obstacles to innovation and encourages the federal government to embrace AI. As many of you know, one of my priorities as chairman is promoting the appropriate use of AI for NCUA employees. One goal is to enhance productivity, but it's also true that regulators who use technology are more apt to understand why the regulated use them. NCUA knows that credit unions have long been early adopters of innovative technology. For example, credit unions were early adopters of mobile apps and remote deposit capture. They were also early to offer online banking platforms, ATMs as well. Because of the cooperative nature of credit unions, they often come together to invest in new technology that serves their members. It makes credit unions agile in a way that banks sometimes can't be. Credit unions don't have to build everything in their own house. They rarely do. So as a regulator and insurer of credit unions, NCUA has a responsibility to keep up with those trends. There's a principle that's timeless. Today we're talking about AI. In the 90s, we're talking about bracing for the use of electronic mail and online PC banking. Remaining connected to the changing marketplace and financial services needs of members will help NCUA continue to embrace the innovation coming out of credit unions. I'm eager to hear more from credit unions and others who have any suggestions related to promoting the responsible use of AI. I echo the remarks of Amanda and Amber here and encourage members of the public to use the Ask NCUA tool to provide additional feedback on AI uses in credit unions. So in my mind, the top question is, how can NCUA provide more regulatory and supervisory clarity? What specific laws, regulations, or requirements may be preventing? Right? At NCUA, our only product is words on a page. It could be a rule, it could be guidance, it could be the examiner's guide, the manual, it could be FAQ. That is the only thing we do, words on a page. So what words need to be added, subtracted, tweaked to allow credit unions to do what they want to do, which is keep up with the new technology. We know that if NCUA had been very hesitant to be positive about this thing called the internet back in the late 90s, early 2000s, if it was only, say 2005, before credit unions felt okay having online bill pay and then mobile apps, well, we wouldn't even be talking about it because they wouldn't have made it that long. They would have been slaughtered in the marketplace. So we want to make sure that isn't happening. And one of the reasons for the timing of this, as you said, was that just this year, GAO, Government Accountability Office, put out a report, and in it, it said the banks and their customers were better off. And that's what we want to talk about. But the thing is, it's not clear to everybody if that's actually true. Now, humans write GAO reports. They do a good job. But it said the banks have an advantage. And they pointed to this 2011, okay? It's their model risk management guidance. That is what the GAO report said, that the banks regulators had put out, and that was a benefit for the banks. And that model risk covers AI. It wasn't about AI back then. It was just broader. But they pointed to that 2011. That's what they said. Look at this 2011 guidance the bank regulators put out, Fed, FDIC, OCC. And NCUA didn't really have something like that. So that was the core of their argument. It's also true that earlier this year, related to AI, Bank Trade Association put out a big article referring to that 2011 model risk management guidance. Headline, the most damaging guidance in banking. And that's the one the GAO praised. So I'm not here to endorse either approach. It doesn't make any difference. What does matter is that people give us their suggestions. Credit unions, vendors, their partners, for lack of a better word. I'm sure there's something we can do better. Future plans, you want to recap? Where do you think our own use of AI is going relative to other agencies, et cetera?
Sure. Thank you for the question. The NCUA, as I mentioned, is taking a methodical approach in identifying technologies that's going to help us achieve our mission. In addition to NCUA's current use cases, our research continues, but preliminary results indicate chatbots and technology that allow for AI integration will add efficiency for staff and allow them to focus on mission-critical tasks. For example, models can be trained to analyze large volumes of data and identify potential risks, significantly enhancing our examination program. Additionally, AI can be used to create like a knowledge base that provides responses to inquiries rather than always relying on a human. There's several examples here of the different policies we have internally, our Consumer Assistance Center. These are all spaces where we're relying on humans to answer questions where technology may help us. NCUA staff have also been sharing ideas and requests with us, so we look forward to continuing to engage with them as we determine our next steps and expand our use here at NCUA.
Thank you. One thing I think is prudent to say is on some of the negatives of AI, as we know, criminals will always use the latest technology. They use the internet, they use crypto as a form of payment. They're always going to use the latest thing.
Yes.
So far, all of the really negative uses of AI, right? Any powerful tool is going to have negatives. It's the same old scams, right? The scam remains the same. There's just new ways of doing it. Impersonating someone. Yes. Bad guys look at LinkedIn and they have scripts running to see new CFOs, new treasurers who, I'm now happy to announce my new job and they see a change in job title, especially if they came from outside. Anybody who has the power to wire large amounts of money, who's new and maybe doesn't know how things work and doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. So the email scam, which is how it was, where it looks like it's from your boss, please wire money to this account. Well, how would you double check that if you were new? Yeah, the phone rings and it's your boss you may have interviewed with, you know their voice, and you hear it. Well, that's not good enough anymore, especially if the call came to you. You didn't call them. Almost all of us, our voices, our appearance, those of us that have speeches we gave online, they can match your cadence. They can match your voice. It can pass voice recognition. You could even have a video chat that looks like, oh, no, I saw Kyle. Yeah, he said, I saw him. He told me. It's the same scam. It's just new ways to do it, right? So, so far, I haven't seen any new scams. I've only seen AI provide a tool to do it a different way. So I haven't seen anything yet AI, that NCUA should do on that, but people need to be aware that the scams are the same, the methods are different. I now recognize Board Member Harper.
Thank you so much, Chairman Haltman. It's been 3 months. Have I missed anything? All kidding aside, I do.
God, is that actually you? Is this
This is actually me, yes.
All right. You need to have those password questions where you can tell if it's a human somehow. Yeah.
Exactly. All kidding aside, first of all, I deeply appreciate today's conversation about the promise and the peril that AI presents for both the NCUA as well as for the credit unions that we regulate and the credit union members that we insure and protect their rights of. Certainly, as we are adopting these new technologies, we need to make sure that we're not only protecting consumer rights and ensuring compliance with those laws, but also that we're protecting safety and soundness. We're looking at data privacy issues. We're looking at fair lending issues, Bank Secrecy Act, and many other issues, just to name a few. Amber, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the question that the chairman raised, and that is, in 2 years, looking ahead, where do you see the agency's use of AI? How will we be employing AI to make our exams more efficient and effective? And certainly that's a very timely question given the recent downsizing efforts, which I did vote for. We're going to have to rely on different tools.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So this is a moving target. So we are in an interesting space with the technology continuing to move. However, we do see a lot of opportunity to leverage artificial intelligence to help us better analyze the large amounts of data that we do collect from credit unions, to help us identify risks in a new way, maybe sooner, rather than going from a human-based approach to a data-driven approach to analyzing our risks and building that into our examination processes. I see a lot of opportunity there. From an internal perspective, as far as I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, from an internal process, one of the things that we struggle with sometimes here is, okay, we have a list of instructions here at NCUA. We have user guides for all the different systems we use. And people can't always find, where do I find that? Or I need just to find this piece of some procedure. And that's where sometimes chatbots can really be helpful to say, all right, just ask it and it's going to give you the answer. But not only does the technology give you the answer, it tells you where that answer is located so you can double check it if you have questions. So I do see those as opportunities. A lot of what we've been exploring recently is around content generation. You still make edits, put it in your voice, but boy, does it save a lot of time if you take a bunch of summary notes and it forms it into text that's usable. So that's where we are seeing some of the opportunities now, and I just see further expansion of that broader across the organization.
So Amber, last year, in passing the budget for this year and the following year, the NCUA board funded a number of new AI positions, because certainly if we're going to be adopting and using AI, we need to have experts in AI helping us. And I recognize that this is evolving. What are the plans for our hiring of AI experts at the agency in order to assist us?
Thank you for the question. So currently, we are leveraging existing resources in-house that have knowledge and background, especially with some of our data scientists, definitely our technical experts in the Office of the Chief Information Officer, and a lot of staff that just have a strong passion in this space, that have self-educated. So we currently don't have a hiring freeze. However, hopefully in the future, we may have the opportunity to bring on additional resources to assist. Okay. But we are moving forward, even with the resource constraints we have now, just leveraging the resources we have today.
All righty. I want to switch it up a little bit and talk about credit unions who use vendors that may be employing AI to assist them in doing their business. And by all means, I'm in favor of effectiveness and efficiency, so long as we're complying with the laws at hand. How in our examinations process are we looking at third-party due diligence by credit unions of AI?
So I'll take that one. So third-party due diligence is not necessarily a new concept. We've had long-standing guidance to both credit unions and examiners on what that should look like, things they should consider. So when examiners are looking at any product, service, program that a credit union's offering or running that involves a third party, they're going to be looking at really focusing on what the credit union looked at. Has the credit union identified what the risks are? Are they mitigating or monitoring those risks, and really understanding the organization or the company that they're doing business with?
Can we get a little more specific on AI? What are our examiners looking there for AI vendors?
So I think when they're looking at vendors, it's going to depend on the service or product being offered or that's using AI. So if it is, for example, I know we have some that use for meetings or chatbots. They're going to be looking at the security of the data, where the data is being stored, who's using the data, how's the output. So it really just depends on how they're how the AI is being used. If it's being used for lending decisions, then they're going to be looking for compliance with all of the consumer financial protections, disclosures, and again, the data, like how that's being stored and used.
And how are we training our examiners to look at these new AI issues? What courses are they? You spoke a little bit about being self-taught. Are they going to the right sources? Are they getting the information from the right places? How do we ensure the safety and soundness of the fund? Because as was mentioned earlier, certainly AI can be used to steal money. And we want to make sure that there are safeguards in place. Help me out there.
Yep. So again, some of these concepts aren't necessarily new. The disclosure and consumer protection requirements are the same, whether a human's doing the math or a computer or an AI. But looking at the technology, we do have it's being integrated into some of our information security officer training and technology or program. We don't currently have an internal course per se, but we do have we do provide access to external training if that is something that examiners feel is needed in their development. Through the FFIEC, there's some trainings that are available. So I think, as Amber said, it's a work in progress as things change and identifying new things to look for, new risks, then we'll continue to update that and provide what's necessary.
Okay. One last topic of questions, and I want to focus in on this. The chairman spoke earlier about how credit unions are able to compete and they're able to use vendors and how and that they can use that. They don't have to build the systems in-house. And certainly, I don't disagree with him on that at all. Help me. One thing that I have been asking staff at the agency repeatedly is there a way for vendors of AI to come to the agency and to have us come and kick the tires, if you will, of their AI and do that in advance so that the vendor can then go to the credit union and the credit union has some assurance that the NCUA has helped it in doing some of the due diligence that's necessary. Where are we on that?
So I do know we have vendors that do come to the agency to present, that we talk to, we discuss some of the risks. I think if that was something the board wanted to move forward with, we'd need to look into it a little bit deeper, as I think just off the top of my head, there might be some risks with endorsing or validating certain vendors or products that may change over time, and how often we would need to provide that assurance.
And certainly I get that. But if you are a small credit union with less than $100 million in assets, which we know the vast majority of credit unions are, 6 out of 10 credit unions are below that threshold, they certainly don't have the resources or the in-house knowledge to assist them. And if there is anything we can do to assist them, and AI has the promise to help them become more efficient, to help them better serve their members, we ought to be doing that. So I would really strongly encourage we as a board, we as an agency, that we take a look at this so that we can assist credit unions moving forward. Mr. Chairman, I am finished here.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I just realized I should add, when I'm asked about this, one thing I think we all agree on is you can put anything on AI for this or that. I mentioned that the scams are the same, but they need to be aware of it. But when it comes to all the other good uses, everything still applies. You can't blame your AI for something. The credit union CEO is responsible and no other human on earth. The board is responsible for hiring and firing a CEO. If your chatbot says some odd things or says the wrong thing or something illegal, that's our new Spanish language chatbot. We just started it. No, that's your problem. You may have a conversation with your vendor. If you're using it for lending, credit decisions, and you're not making good loans, or you're making loans that are disastrous, you can't say, it's the algorithm, it's the AI. No, that's you're just as responsible for that as if it was done the old school way. So everything still applies. You can't just blame AI if something goes wrong. You may have conversations with your vendor, but from our perspective, you made that loan, you did the foreign languages are one of the best uses of it. People now have chatbots in foreign languages. They're serving local communities. They couldn't before. You have loan forms in Arabic, et cetera. If something goes wrong there, that is the responsibility of the credit union, just like it always was. All right. Board Member Otska, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Hopman. Actually, on that point, couldn't agree more. You can't blame your AI. Just like if you have a backup camera on your car and it goes out and you run into the car behind you, you can't say, "Officer, my backup camera stopped working." Like, it's still, you're still responsible for the use of technology of things that you're driving, you're using, you're lending, what have you. So AI may have the potential to change the way we do things, and we need to be prepared for those changes. We should continue to learn more about whether artificial intelligence can help modernize processes and make financial services more accessible and more affordable to more people. And I understand we're just getting started on kind of understanding the scope of use of AI in the credit union system. I understand, a lot of what we know is anecdotal. We don't know exactly the number of credit unions using AI or using third parties that are using AI. But I think we should, again, continue to make sure that it's used in an appropriate way that's consistent with regulations and laws. We need to make sure we understand how these AI systems work and the quality and accuracy of the data being used and where it's coming from, because the system is only as good as the data that it's learning from. And that's really critical when it comes to people's money and finances. The use of technology does not absolve credit unions or the agency from mitigating risks and following the laws in place to protect people. And many studies and surveys have shown that Americans are concerned about the use of AI. So the NCUA should focus not just on how the agency or credit unions might use AI, but also how it impacts credit union members. And I don't want to turn away from Todd's face on the screen here, but if we could go back to that slide at the Ask NCUA web email address. I encourage not just credit unions, but also credit union members to contact us with their comments and feedbacks on what is working for you at your credit union and what is not working for you. Because the NCUA is here to serve credit union members and the broader public, and so I want to make sure that to the extent there are credit union members out there watching this meeting today, they know where to go, because I personally want to hear from you, and I know my colleagues do as well. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think credit union members are a really important stakeholder in this whole conversation. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our discussion. Next item.
Thank you.
Office of the Ombudsman. All right, so Amanda stays here on this one, and we have Shamika Sutton, NCUA's Ombudsman. Begin when ready.
All right. Good morning, Chairman Hopman, Board Member Harper, and Board Member Oska. It is my pleasure to provide you and the industry with this briefing today. I am Shamika Sutton, the Ombudsman for the National Credit Union Administration. As the Ombudsman of the agency, I report to the NCUA Board of Directors and serve as the designated neutral to informally resolve concerns of stakeholders about regulatory activity or supervisory processes. Today, I will provide information about the function of the Office of the Ombudsman, as well as highlight statistics and overall results of the post-examination survey. This briefing supports NCUA's strategic objectives of ensuring sound organizational governance and providing effective and efficient supervision. Next slide. Next slide, please. The NCUA Office of the Ombudsman is an independent office which functions to deliver an impartial forum for stakeholder feedback and issue resolution. The Regal Community Development and Regulatory Improvement Act of 1994 required each federal banking agency and the NCUA to appoint an ombudsman to act as a liaison between the agency and any affected person regarding any regulatory activity. I serve as an independent, neutral, and confidential resource to ensure a fair and transparent process when interacting with the NCUA. Stakeholders should contact the Ombudsman when there are concerns about regulatory processes or to communicate unfairness in an interaction with the agency. For example, Parties should contact the Ombudsman if they believe an examination was not performed in accordance with agency standards, they desire to resolve a dispute informally regarding a supervisory finding, rating, or determination, or they need clarity or help to better understand NCUA processes. For any of the aforementioned concerns, the Ombudsman can assist by facilitating communication, conducting an independent review to determine systemic issues, or making recommendations to the NCUA board to ensure transparency and fairness in agency processes. Next slide, please. The Ombudsman fulfills its mission through execution of its core programs. In the Case Management and Data Analysis Program, the office conducts independent reviews of stakeholder inquiries and utilizes data to identify trends and patterns of concern. Analysis of this data informs recommendations made to executive leadership by the Ombudsman. In 2024, we received 598 inquiries from external stakeholders regarding exam processes and consumer complaint processes, amongst many others. We also conducted 10 independent reviews, leading to 1 recommendation to senior leadership regarding the consumer complaint process. The Stakeholder Engagement and Outreach Program provides opportunities for the Ombudsman to directly engage with stakeholders to solicit input on NCUA processes. We regularly participate in activities to raise awareness of our resources and services. Federally insured credit unions, credit union associations, and other stakeholders are encouraged to contact the Ombudsman for opportunities to connect. For more information on 2024 data trends and outreach activities of the office, please read our Ombudsman Annual Report released earlier this week and located on the Ombudsman page of the agency website. In addition to the outreach mentioned, the Ombudsman connects with stakeholders via the post-examination survey, which gathers input and ideas on preferred approaches and sensitivities to the exam process from federal charter credit unions. I will now transition to discuss results of the post-exam survey. Next slide, please. The NCUA began hosting the post-exam survey in September of 2021. As of March 2025, the survey is now administered by an external vendor to improve the survey process and to maintain separation of the survey responses from NCUA staff conducting exam work. My office continues to evaluate aggregate survey data and report the results to NCUA leadership. The survey questions focused on 4 different exam areas: the pre-exam questions, exam procedures, exam-related communications with management and officials, and the exam report. I will highlight 3 main observations to include trends in survey participation, common themes and feedback from EICs, and inefficiencies in exam procedures experienced by credit unions. In 2024, the survey achieved a response rate of 52%, an increase of 30% from 2023. While overall participation improved, analysis revealed that since inception of the survey, participation by credit unions has continuously trended downward, while EIC involvement steadily increases, likely due to mandatory participation as required by the agency. In measuring annual participation by regions, analysis further revealed the Eastern region maintained consistency in its participation year after year. The Southern region displayed the highest overall participation rates for 2024, and the Western region has the lowest participation, suggesting a need to explore alternative outreach strategies for this group in the future. I should note that lower participation rates for this region are likely attributed to less federal charters than the Eastern and Southern regions. In addition, I should also mention common inquiries received by state chartered credit unions regarding the survey. After the February release of the letters to credit unions, many state charters contacted the office to inquire about logistics of the survey as well as future participation. The insights gathered from this participation analysis will be used to enhance future survey methodologies and ensure more representative data collection. I will now discuss common themes and feedback from EICs. Next slide, please. Credit union examiners play a crucial role in maintaining the safety and soundness of credit unions. Their work helps protect member deposits and maintain public confidence. They are also vital to the mission of the NCUA and carry the primary responsibility of conducting examinations of credit unions. Naturally, their feedback is imperative when evaluating efficiencies and effectiveness in the exam process. After review of the survey data, I observed a pattern of EIC feedback on questions related to off-site exam work and areas that should be included in the exam process. The question that received the most engagement from credit unions and EICs was related to the distribution of on-site and remote exam work. Overall, examiner responses indicated many benefits to completing most of the exams on site at the credit unions. When commenting on off-site exam work, examiner feedback included: future exams would run smoother if they are done entirely on-site. Additional on-site work would be beneficial for training new employees and improving communications with management. Last, the hybrid work posture adds communication challenges and slows the exam process. There was also a common theme amongst examiner responses, which focused on small credit unions. Examiners frequently mentioned that credit unions under $100 million in assets should be made aware of additional assistance from NCUA, as well as receive more guidance covering overdraft and NSF fees. Finally, I will discuss future considerations for exam procedures based on input received from the survey. For 2024, aggregate survey results yielded 94% positive responses related to the collaboration, narrative, and delivery of the exam report. However, the most significant data point uncovered for exam procedures was that 41% of credit union survey participants do not agree that duplicate requests for data and information are avoided during the exam. Credit unions emphasized the need for the agency to reduce duplicative requests. Feedback included: items that were loaded on the secure portal were asked for again at the time of the exam. During the exam, my examiner asked for items that had been requested and provided before the exam started. And last, there is no coordination between examiners, and they rarely check the portal to see what information has already been provided. After sharing this feedback from credit unions with the NCUA board and NCUA leadership, the Office of Examinations and Insurance was tasked with ensuring efficiency in this area of the exam process. Amanda Parkhill, the acting director for the Office of Examination and Insurance, will briefly discuss proposed actions to mitigate this concern for credit unions.
Thank you, Shamika. I recognize multiple requests for the same document is a frustrating issue, which we have tried to manage over the years. So we do have policies that require examiners to coordinate on the items requested so that credit unions get a request for all items once and not for multiple people. We've organized the request list by risk area to group like items. We've enhanced technology to make our secure file transfer portal, or SFTP, easier to use by allowing credit unions to drag entire folders and for examiners to download materials in the folder structure. However, based on the survey responses, we have some more work to do. So we're taking additional actions to address this concern. First, I do want to note that there are several reasons that examiners may ask for something more than once. For example, examiners may not have access to where the credit union uploaded the documents. Maybe examiners just can't find a document because they aren't sure what the file name is. Sometimes there's confusion on both sides about what is actually being asked for because maybe we call the report something different. And sometimes just because we're human, if you're talking to someone, it's easier to just say, hey, do you mind just emailing me this? But because there are so many reasons, we are approaching this from a variety of angles. We'll address the technology gap by modifying the merit examination system to remind the examiner in charge to add all team members to all necessary systems so that they have access to the exam materials and don't have to follow up with a request. We'll also continue to research system changes that can make this process less burdensome, which may include incorporation of AI tools. We will develop guidance on how to easily set up a folder structure in the My Documents folder and allow credit unions and examiners to drag that entire structure into the portal. We'll be creating a web page with tips and tricks for credit unions so that we're all working towards the same goal of making sure the exam team has the materials needed to complete an effective exam in the most efficient way possible. The page will include some best practices to help make the process of gathering and providing materials easier. Some examples of those best practices include uploading files in an organized format, naming the files with descriptive file names, and communicating early on if there are questions or confusion about what's being requested. We're going to ensure all staff are aware of the new and existing policies and provide additional guidance so examiners know expectations. And we'll also provide best practices to examiners through messaging and training. And this will include practices like making sure that all examiners have access to the tools and the materials, organizing the documents using a standard folder structure, and again, communicating with credit union staff if there are questions or miscommunications. But we're also open to other ideas or suggestions for how we can make this process easier and more streamlined, both for credit unions and examiners. So maybe there's a system or process that works really well for your credit union, and you want to share it with others or with us. If so, please, again, send those ideas to Ask NCUA, either at the email address askncua@ncua.gov, or by going to our website, and it's the same page that I mentioned in the AI briefing. And so all stakeholders can access that in the same manner. So I'll now turn it back over to Shamika to wrap up.
All right, thank you, Amanda. In summary, stakeholder feedback to the Ombudsman via direct engagement or the post-exam survey improves regulatory transparency and strengthens stakeholder relationships. By providing insights into strengths and areas of improvement, feedback facilitates solution and drives innovation. Most importantly, I'd like to emphasize NCUA's commitment to maintaining an environment where credit unions feel free to raise questions, express concerns, or complain about the agency's actions or policies. We invite your input. Employees should not retaliate as a result of adverse feedback. In an effort to increase credit union participation in surveys, starting July 28th, CEOs will begin receiving reminder notifications in Merit to complete the survey after the report is uploaded. For more information about the Office of the Ombudsman or the post-exam survey, please contact us by phone, email, or visit the Ombudsman page on the agency website. This concludes my briefing.
Thank you. Want to mention one reason I decided to add this to the agenda today is board meetings are a way to promote things and highlight things. It's a piece of real estate we can use. We have this today to highlight the Ombudsman. It's useful. It's there. Remind people. The post-exam survey, I'm glad you said that about retaliation. Almost never does it actually reach the examiner anyway, so they're not. But NCUA does have now an anti-retaliation policy like all the others, so that it is misconduct by an examiner if they treat somebody differently because somebody gave feedback. But again, your office does a great job. They go to the Ombudsman. We don't see them. It almost never reaches the examiner level anyway. Want to say that. I just want to address this, the duplicative. That has been constant. Why are you asking for the same information again, right? And we already have a lot of credit unions, depending on their size, that think we ask for too much information. We ask for things that are low value. The only thing worse than that is being asked for that low value information 3 times. So I'm trying to get under the hood, right? The agency is making an effort to look through every corner of everything we do, especially since over 20% of our employees took one of the deals, right? We have to change how we do things. And that duplicative request thing, we had a few come in and they said, you know, we had a brand new examiner show up because somebody, I guess, quit their job entirely, and then they had to drop an examiner into the middle of it, and they had to ask for everything again. So I said, I got under the hood. Walk me through exactly why this was the case, right? Because everybody agrees it probably shouldn't be the case. And it's too hard is the answer. There's too many ways, there's too much manual labor, there's too many things that require a human being awake, right? I remember I sat down with an examiner with their computer. I said, show me how this works, because I haven't been an examiner. Well, the supervisor has to add them to the exam, first of all, here in this system, manually with their own hand, go in there and add them. And then they have to give them access over here in this other system. And then I guess some of the subfolders, the information, you have to give access. And people should be better about that. The supervisor should have done this. Okay, fine. But if enough people are doing a job wrong, there's not something wrong with the people, there's something wrong with the job. And so I think the items you mentioned, make it easier to get it right. Right? Browbeating people, well, the examiner really should have added them, or they should have been clear, or it's too difficult. You're not going to solve it that way, right? You have to find a new way to do it, right? We're old enough to remember there was, people around the world were not very good about rewinding videos when they return them. And it meant that it was a pain for the employees, and it was a cost, and somebody else literally couldn't watch that movie right away, and they complained, and they fined us, and they gave us fees, and there were political fights about the late fees. That problem's gone, but you know what? We never got better at it. We never solved it. You just couldn't stop human nature. We never got better at it. What happened? We found a better way to do it, and we don't have to talk about it anymore. That's the solution here, right? We have to Netflix this, right? We have to find a new way to do it so it's easier, because saying, the examiner should have added them there, and they should have clicked here, and they should have done that. No, it's too difficult. It's too hard. That's why I just keep saying, got to find a new way to do it, right? And so I'm going to leave it at that, but again, always open for ideas here. Recognize Board Member Harper.
First of all, I appreciate that from now on, Netflix is a verb, not just a noun. Hereby be it known that the chairman made that edict. Second of all, though, more seriously, Shamika, I want to thank you for the outstanding job that you continue to do as the ombudsman. One of the things, though, I am concerned about is that we have an outstanding recommendation, and that is to create a truly independent ombudsman's office. Currently, you're housed within the executive director's office. Where are we on the plans to follow through on that recommendation? If I remember correctly, it was made by the Inspector General, or it may have been GAO. Where are we in that process?
So I'll answer that. You are correct. In 2012, there was a recommendation by the Office of Inspector General about the reporting structure of the Office of the Ombudsman. I will say where we are in that process, that it's ongoing. We are in the midst of a hiring freeze. I am the acting ombudsman for the agency. And so I think once the hiring freeze is lifted, we can probably transition to creating that office and making that role permanent for whoever that person is going to be. But I've had communications with the board regarding the status of that, and I will say that's ongoing.
Okay. Thank you for that. The second thing is I share everybody's concern. Amanda, I found helpful your explanations as to how we are trying to decrease the number of duplicative requests. And certainly that has been a long-standing complaint that I've heard. And I am supportive of any effort we can do to make it easier for people in this process. And that was certainly one of the promises that we wanted to fulfill when we created the merit system, was to have the downloadable portal to make it easier for the collection of information. But we as board members also, as part of our roles, are ombudsmen ourselves. Shamika, I'm not taking anything away from you, but we do hear from credit unions regularly. And one thing that I consistently hear from credit unions is, would it be possible for the NCUA to set up a web page with monetary thresholds so that as credit unions are hitting the $100 million threshold, the $250 million threshold, the $10 billion threshold, what are the rules that they are going to need to start preparing for? Because we don't have that collected in a center place. Amanda, is that something that you could work with the teams in the Office of External? Actually, I think it's now been moved back to the Office of the Chief Information Officer with the website, but creating some centralized place where we have this data and information, and we can point credit unions to make it easier on them rather than having to read all of our regulations at once.
Absolutely. I can take that back and look into how to make that happen.
Okay, great. And then my last thing is, if we could go to slide 4 on there, we note that the Office of the Ombudsman has 2 primary functions: case management and data analysis program. And Shamika, you spoke in great detail about that today. But we also have a responsibility with the Ombudsman Office to do stakeholder engagement and outreach. What do we have planned for the remainder of 2025 or even into 2026 to have stakeholder engagement and outreach by the Ombudsman?
So thank you for that question. The Ombudsman is limited right now with resources, but what we have done thus far and what we plan to do throughout the end of the year is that we have done some outreach and some connections with our state, our SSAs. I've met recently with NASCIS to get some input on their questions that they had about future involvement in the survey. We also plan, hopefully by the end of the year, to attend a conference with NASCIS, again, to have better outreach and engagement with our stakeholders so they better understand the resources of our office and what we can do and what we handle. So that's what we have planned by the end of the year. Hopefully next year with the lifting of the hiring freeze, we can have more resources in the office and we can do more engagement.
Shamika, that's good pieces of information, and I'm fully supportive of anything we can do, because I think one thing we don't focus enough on is that outreach focus, and those agencies that have adopted a fully independent a program for the ombudsman do this, and it actually pays returns to the agency and to the entities that we regulate and individuals that we protect. With that, I will yield back.
Thank you, sir. I now recognize Board Member Otsko.
Thank you, and thank you both for the presentation. The Ombuds plays an important role for accountability and transparency. The Ombuds is a resource for credit unions and, importantly, credit union members if they have issues that they believe should be addressed in a confidential manner. I want to highlight something that actually jumped out at me from the 2024 annual report, which was recently published. The number of inquiries and complaints regarding cyber threats and data breaches, mostly from credit union members, quote, concerned about the privacy of their data and applicable coverage of share insurance if their credit unions were to fail. That jumped out at me because clearly this is something that people care about, because they want to know that their money is safe and they want to know that their personal information is safe. And so I just want to highlight that since we got this presentation on the role of the ombuds, because it's the NCUA's job to make sure that credit unions are protecting their members and that people trust their institutions to do just that. So addressing these issues should also be a key focus for us. And this concern, somewhat dovetails with the things that we should be thinking about in the context of AI, which was our earlier presentation. So thank you both for the presentation, and I yield back.
All right, thanks to you both. Final item, Central Liquidity Facility. Anthony Capetta, President of CLF, is presenting. Good morning, Anthony. Be mindful. Hard stop at 11:30. It's mostly because of Todd's schedule. So let's try to do the greatest hits version of this. And bottom line up front, and we can go through other stuff and questions, all right?
Okay.
Get when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman Hopman.
All your slides are going to be posted online, right? You got
Yes.
a lot of info in there. All right. Yeah.
Board members Harper and Otsuka, I'm here today to provide a brief overview of the Central Liquidity Facility, or CLF, for the second quarter of 2025 and the second quarter 2025 update. Effective liquidity, interest rate, and credit risk management are key components of a credit union's safety and soundness. Although 2025 has not yet seen any significant changes in interest rates, credit conditions, or the availability of liquidity, the likelihood of unforeseen economic fluctuations in the coming years makes access to sources of contingent liquidity like those of the CLF especially important. Next slide, please. So to shorten the presentation, basically the CLF was created 45 years ago to be the credit union's discount window, access to federal funds, to provide access to federal funds like the banks had. Although that's changed since that time, and credit unions can now access to the discount window, the CLF continues to be a major backup of source of liquidity for both federal and state chartered credit unions, especially during periods of financial crisis or uncertainty. Furthermore, because the CLF is authorized to make loans to the National Credit Union Share Insurance Fund, the CLF can also provide a vital source of funds to assist with any system-wide liquidity events that may occur. So in brief, to become a regular member of the CLF, a consumer credit union joins directly, just completes a short application, and subscribes to the CLF capital stock in the amount of 0.5% of its paid-in and unpaid capital surplus. And once their application is completed and the money is received, a credit union may request a loan. Next slide, please. So the CLF can make three types of loans. Those loans are short-term adjustment credits available to assist in meeting temporary requirements for funds or to cushion persistent outflows of funds pending an orderly readjustment of the credit union's assets or liabilities. Seasonal credits, which are available for longer periods to assist in meeting seasonal needs for funds. And protracted adjustment credits, and those are available in the event of unusual emergency circumstances of a longer nature, and there you're thinking national, regional, or local difficulties. So unlike other sources of liquidity, for example, the Federal Home Loan Bank or the Fed discount window, the CLF is not a no questions asked facility or lender. By statute, the CLF and I quote, "shall not approve the application for credit, the intent of which is to expand credit union portfolios." So appropriate uses for the CLF loan may include, but are not limited to, borrowing to meet an unexpected loss in shares of non-member funds, borrowing to address an unexpected surge in credit demands within the membership, and borrowing to meet liquidity needs due to forces beyond the immediate control of the credit union. However, borrowing from the CLF is not appropriate to take advantage of the differential rate between the CLF, what the CLF offers, and an alternative source of funds, credit arbitrage, rate arbitrage. Borrowing to substitute the CLF loan for normal short-term interest rate shares, such as certificates or money market shares, or borrowing to support a planned increase in loans, investment holdings, or new loan product offerings. Next slide, please. So these are the actions that the CLF will take upon receiving a request from a member credit union, and they are there, as you mentioned, for a credit union to go through. Basically, the CLF will look at a credit union's creditworthiness and liquidity needs, which are required by statute, and then go through a series of items to determine whether the CLF can make a loan to a credit union. Next slide, please. Yep. So categories of liquidity sources that are available to credit unions include its balance sheet, market sources, for example, the home loan banks, and the corporate credit unions, and backup facilities, and that is the Fed discount window and the CLF. So shown here are the number and percentage of the CLF members who have access to these sources, the capacity of each borrowing source, and the associated utilization. So the table shows that, as expected, the home loan banks and the corporate credit unions are the primary sources of liquidity for our member credit unions, with the federal contingent or backup liquidity sources of the Fed discount windows and the CLF minimally used. Further, the table shows that as a subset of all credit unions, CLF members are managing the liquidity sources well and have ample capacity and access to liquidity if needed. I'll also note that in 2025, the CLF has not received a loan request. Next slide, please. So presented next will be a CLF second quarter update. As a reminder for stakeholders, the CLF's monthly financial statements are posted on the CLF page of ncua.gov. Next slide, please. These are the financial highlights as of June 20th, 2025, and the next slides will discuss these items in more detail. Next slide, please. So as of the end of the second quarter of 2025, the CLF had 447 regular members. Regular membership has grown by 24 net new members year over year and now safeguards approximately 10% of all federally insured credit unions. Membership trends remain favorable, with net losses to regular member rolls due to mergers and withdrawals are offset by new memberships. It's expected that the CLF will continue to see growth for the remainder of 2025 and into 2026 as more credit unions determine that having access to a federal source of liquidity is a wise choice in their liquidity management and contingency funding plans, or that they reach the $250 million asset level and choose the CLF as a backup source of liquidity. Recall that the NCUA regulation Part 741, Spot 1-2, the so-called liquidity rule, requires that credit unions greater than $250 million in assets have access to either the CLF or the discount window. Next slide, please. By statute, the CLF can leverage its subscribed capital up to 12 times that amount to borrow from any source. As of the end of the second quarter of 2025, the CLF's borrowing authority was a robust $22.7 billion, and the CLF has a no purchase agreement in place to borrow from the Federal Financing Bank to match fund CLF loans for the majority of this amount. This borrowing can be used to fund member advances and advance funds to the NCU SIF. Notably, the CLF's borrowing authority is approximately the size of the Share Insurance Fund. Next slide, please. So by statute, the CLF may only invest in obligations of the United States Treasury or any agency thereof, make deposits in federally insured institutions, or make investments in shares or deposits of credit unions. Currently, the CLF investment portfolio is invested in non-callable U.S. Treasuries, overnight bills, notes, and floating notes. This chart depicts the composition of the CLF portfolio. To meet the investment objectives, the majority of the investment portfolio is positioned in overnight and short duration assets. The longer note investments provide income stability for periods of extremely low short-term interest rates, like those experienced from 2008 to 2015, and then again in 2020 to 2022. Together, the portfolio is well positioned to perform in the current interest rate environment and meet any future demands for facility advances, membership withdrawals, and covering operating expenses. Next slide, please. So capital stockholders receive a quarterly dividend on their paid-in portion of the subscribed capital, and the dividend rate is administered as an ability to pay commitment. However, the CLF has always paid a dividend. The CLF pays a dividend after covering expenses and meeting retained earnings objectives. CLF members earned $8.4 million in dividends on their contributed capital for the second quarter of 2025, bringing the total for 2025 in dividends paid to date of $16.4 million. Next slide, please. So the CLF is a financially self-supporting and funded exclusively through earnings on investments. The charts show here depict operating expenses, the operating expense ratio, and the total revenue for the past several years. The operating expense ratio illustrates the relatively low cost of operations compared to the operating income. Budgeted 2025 operating expenses were 0.23% of average total assets, or $2.3 million. And actual year-to-date 2025 operating expenses are 0.19% average total assets, or $0.95 million. And that's trending approximately 17% below budget. So note that the CLF advances do not increase revenue, as all loans made by the CLF reflect a loan rate based on facility costs. Increases in the revenue are directly related to earnings on investments, which are a function of interest rates. Next slide, please. So the retained earnings support the risks inherent in operations, provide a borrowing base, and support the cost of operations. And the CLF adjusts the amount of investment income used for retained earnings based on two metrics. The top graph illustrates the retained earnings and the ratio of retained earnings to borrowing authority. As CLF membership grows, more members increase the potential for more loans and larger borrowings, both of which increases the potential risks to the CLF. To mitigate those risks, the CLF maintains a 0.2 to 0.35% range of this ratio. The bottom graph shows total assets, retained earnings, and the ratio of retained earnings to total assets. And as membership grows, the cost of operations grows, and to support the cost of operations, the CLF targets a 3 to 5% range for this ratio. Next slide, please. So looking ahead for 2025, the CLF will continue to monitor liquidity conditions at the credit union and system levels, continue its industry and stakeholder communications and outreach to promote the benefits and advantages of CLF membership, and continue efforts to grow and strengthen the CLF membership, and also work with our corporate credit union partners, and provide liquidity when needed. That concludes my presentation. I hope that was fast enough. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
For time reasons, I'll recognize Board Member Harper to go first.
Thank you so much. And first of all, Anthony, thank you for the continued good work that you and your team continue to do in adding credit unions to the CLF. You mentioned that we're currently at 447 credit unions. What is our year-end goal for the number of credit unions that we would like to hit?
So our goal is based on what we've kind of been doing for the last several years, which is taking in a net 2 to 3 members per month. So given that we have 5 months left in the year, I'd expect that that's an additional 10 members. That would bring us up to approximately 460 plus members.
Anthony, also too, I unfortunately think back to March of 2023 when I sat in the chairman's seat and we experienced a liquidity crisis across the financial system. Can you talk just a little bit why it's important for credit unions to set up their liquidity sources before the pipes freeze?
Yes, thanks for that question. And I reflect kind of on that adage that everybody knows, you know, the time to go looking for liquidity is when you don't need it. And it's just a wise planning in your liquidity management plans as well as your contingency funding plans to have that backup source, guaranteed source of the liquidity provided by either the discount window or the CLF for those systemic issues that we know will occur sometime in the future, and put stress on the primary lenders of the home loan banks, the market, and the corporates. And you need to have the facilities like the discount window and the CLF there to keep things going.
Anthony, I read there's a critic of the agency who likes to write blog posts that sometimes contain inaccurate information. And earlier today, you said we've not had a request in 2025 for a loan from the CLF, and I will take that at face value. But I also know that in recent years, we have had requests for CLF loans. Is that not the case?
That is, back in 2024, we did fund several loans for some members. So the CLF is certainly functionable, and we have deployed loans to members as they've requested it.
And Anthony, can you talk to me, because during the 2008 financial crisis, there is an interaction between the Share Insurance Fund and the CLF, and we were able to use the CLF to help borrow for the Share Insurance Fund to help keep it solvent. Can you talk why maintaining a strong CLF is important for the Share Insurance Fund?
So I had mentioned during the presentation that our borrowing authority is now about the size of the Share Insurance Fund, and that was one of our goals because of exactly what you are mentioning here. So during the great financial crisis from 2008 continuing through 2011, with the corporate system coming under pressure, NCUA had to create the Corporate System Resolution Program. And as part of that program, there was many things done. The NGN program, issuing of MTN notes, the use of the SIF to provide liquidity to the system. And during that time, the CLF loaned to the SIF approximately $10 billion. Which I believe was very close to what its capacity was at that time. There might be some timing issues there. In addition to loaning to some of the members and supporting some of the unique programs that NCUA came up to deal with the mortgage crisis. So that is why the CLF is important not only for our members and their contingent liquidity needs as we get into stress, but also the way in which the CLF supports the entire credit union system. And by members being part of the CLF, they help keep the system safe.
Anthony, thank you so much for that. Just one final point that I want to make. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we had the emergency powers for the CLF that allowed corporate credit unions to serve as a flow through for their credit union members, for a subset of their members. And all of the corporate credit unions stepped up to provide liquidity for those institutions of less than $250 million in assets. I know that the agency has continued to make that request to Congress to restore that authority. Certainly, smaller credit unions can benefit from it. Corporate credit unions have demonstrated the ability. Right now, it's an all or nothing. You have to serve all of your members. Corporate credit unions can't afford to put that capital forward. But I remain wholly supportive of restoring for a subset of members through legislation that authority. With that, Mr. Chairman, I know you've been supportive of that as well. I yield.
You bet. There was that brief period of time with the CARES Act, and I yield to no one in my limited government conservative cred. Congress continuing that, even though it was CARES Act and COVID, the whole thing ended, still strikes me as good policy. We don't tell Congress what to do, but the reality is if you want small credit unions to have liquidity that help them survive, it is easy, and it is another layer between a problem at a credit union and the taxpayer. So I just want to say that. Regarding comparing what Mr. Harper said, comparing CLF to other sources of liquidity, I think it's good for anyone to have multiple sources of liquidity because not just is good to have backup, but they're different. They have different pros and cons. In my own personal life, like many of you, I have probably three. I have a credit card, I have a margin loan I can take from my brokerage account, and I have a home equity loan I can tap. And I've used all three at different times for different reasons. They have different pros and cons. Why are people shopping at different liquidity stores if they actually do have liquidity need? Because just because somebody isn't getting a loan from CLF and the CLF isn't making many loans in general, doesn't mean that nobody out there has liquidity. Is that a criticism that the CLF, isn't serving its purpose, that people do have what we could call liquidity need, but they're just not using the CLF?
Well, thank you for that question. So today, roughly 70% of the CLF members are also members of the FHLB, which was shown on the chart. And in fact, 100% of the CLF members that are greater than $1 billion in assets have access to the FHLB. So credit unions choose the home loan bank and or the CLF for numerous reasons. The FHLB provides market funding with the GSE Advantage rate, which can be used by credit union members to either meet their true liquidity needs or strategically leverage their balance sheet. Credit unions utilizing the federal home loan banks are required to have mortgage assets and can only borrow by pledging mortgage-related collateral. Comparing the CLF and the FHLB is an apples to oranges comparison, as the purpose and function of these two facilities is different. Credit unions evaluate the Federal Home Loan Bank's funding as an alternative to certificate specials, non-member funding, and borrowing from their own corporate or financial institutions for the purpose of liquidity or to strategically invest. The CLF acts as liquidity insurance in the event the home loan bank or other market sources of funding are unavailable or impractical, like during the financial crisis. And that concludes my answer. Thank you.
Gotcha. I appreciate you saying that the CLF's not a charity. It's supposed to make good loans. It can't exist in the long run if it doesn't. And that it's supposed to be something that you've gone through other options. FHLB is more wholesale funding, right? It's a different thing. To review, liquidity is when you have the money just not at the right time. If your business model is you get $100 in revenue and you only have 90 in expenses, well, that sounds good, right? That works. $10 profit. That model works. Liquidity is when you owe the 90 today and the 100 doesn't come till tomorrow. If those numbers are reversed and you're losing money, then liquidity is not going to save you. Yield, just like the share insurance fund, liquidity, the CLF, the money doesn't come from the sky. People pool money, it sits there, and then people tap it when they need it. And you earn a little yield when it's there. I think your yield is about 4% right now, right?
Yes.
For treasuries only, which is only allowed to be, it's actually pretty good yield in my opinion right now, especially since how front-loaded the whole it is. But you can earn a higher yield at some of the other sources of liquidity. Well, is that a criticism?
Well, first let me say nobody should join the CLF for the purposes of getting a dividend.
Right.
And the CLF has advantages versus some of those other sources. For instance, there's no pre-positioning of collateral, which deals with the assets of the credit union, unlike there is at the FHLB. Also, the FHLB, with their funding rate and the things that they can invest in, can reach a rate that the CLF simply can't because of what we're limited to. For a credit union in determining whether they should be part of the FHLB or the CLF, I don't think it has to be one or the other. It should be both.
I hear you, but if someone says you make 4% in your money sitting at the CLF, what do you get at FHLB now? I guess 6, 7?
Yeah, I think.
Right, and that's obviously higher. More yield is good.
Right.
Why is it so much higher over there? Is that a critique of the CLF?
No.
Because it's mortgages.
Yes.
Because the collateral is mortgages, and mortgages are 7% and treasuries are 4. Yeah, anyway, we're agreeing with each other, but the fact that people have a need and they're getting it someplace else is different for a bunch of reasons. The fact that it may look like a better deal. Well, my money's sitting at the FHLB earns me 6%. Well, yeah, it's because it's investing in mortgages and the CLF's not allowed to. Nor do you really want it to. Because what was the biggest liquidity crunch since we've been alive? It was the financial crisis. The
Yes.
mortgages went south.
Right.
Treasuries, on the other hand, went up in value. All right, there is that, and I think I want to give you credit for increasing the number of members. You said 350 up to 447. It is never a bad time for us to remind people to have sources of liquidity. Joining a CLF is a 12-page form. Just Google NCUA space CLF. You can get to it. We're not supposed to promote the CLF, but what we do care about liquidity, right? The reality is it's an L in camels and having multiple sources. And if you could see a liquidity crisis coming, you wouldn't call it a crisis. I now recognize Board Member Otsko.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony, for your presentation. I didn't see it in the slides, but what's the general breakdown of asset sizes of the credit unions that are members of the CLF?
So it's roughly 50% along the lines of the $250 million level. We have, I want to say 13 plus credit unions that are above $1 billion. I might be wrong on that. But greater than 250 million, it's about half of the 447
Okay.
and half that are below.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
You're all done, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we conclude the meeting today, I want to remind the public, we've invited input on our strategic plan. These are in 4-year chunks, 2022, 2026, and then the next one will be 2026, 2030. You can use the Ask NCUA tool to share your feedback and ideas and direction of the agency and our priorities. We ask that you submit those ideas on our 4-year strategic plan by August 15th. That concludes my remarks. Mr. Harper, anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing at all. Chairman, thank you for accommodating me, for participating virtually today. I deeply appreciate it. I also look forward to receiving the comments on the strategic plan. It's one of the most important things that we do to set course for the agency. We do it, of course, every 4 years, and it'll be a good process for us to work through together now that we have a quorum once again on the board to take action on items like that.
You got it, yeah. All three of us have had occasion where the other two were sitting here at this table and the other one of us was up there, so these things happen. Board Member Oska, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hopman. I just want to say that I'm glad to be back to work and working with my fellow board members and NCUA staff again and engaging with credit unions and their members and the broader public. Congress has entrusted the NCUA with the responsibility to protect credit union members and the credit union system. Our ability to do that job depends on a strong, independent agency that focuses on the long-term safety and stability of our financial system. I will continue to carry out the NCUA mission as I always have. I also plan to look at the actions that were taken while we were gone, including several credit union liquidations and conservatorships, which Chair Hopman actually mentioned at the top, personnel actions, and rulemaking reviews. And I plan to work with my fellow board members on many of our shared goals and priorities, like support for small credit unions. We need to get back to work with a full NCUA board. Our reinstatement on the NCUA board is important for the millions of people who trust federally insured credit unions with their hard-earned money, and it's also important for our entire financial system. Independent financial regulators are key to making sure we have confidence and stability in our markets and economy. And again, I'm just really looking forward to working with my fellow board members again. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. We've reached the end of our agenda today. Appreciate everyone being here. Special thanks to the staff. A lot of great effort putting together these presentations today. There being no further business, we are hereby adjourned.